Hi, my name is Caitlin Donald. I help curate the lobby shows at the Dubuque Museum of Art. And we are here with Mike Day.
Thanks, Caitlin. Yeah, I'm Mike Day from the Telegraph Herald. I've been the senior editorial artist and designer at the newspaper for the past 38 years. And I'm here to see some Frank Leslie illustrateds.
Yeah. So this is all about, we have a small show up right now till the end of January-ish that is called Same Old, Same Old. It's all about the newspapers and cartoons and illustrations from newspapers around 1870s to early 1900s. And then we're going to open them up and you're going to teach us about a bunch of really cool things and I'm going to learn a bunch of really cool things and I'm excited.
Let's check them out.
Yeah.
Well, I had heard of Harper's Weekly, of course, but I had never seen a Frank Leslie's newspaper until I came down here to the Art Museum. And what strikes me about him is just the amazing repro on them. I mean, the colors are brilliant, and there's so much detail in them. There's so much to look at and really capture a person's attention. And of course, you think back when these were published, a lot of the people were likely illiterate, so they were really captivated by the images, either illiterate because they were uneducated or possibly immigrants who had recently come to the country and hadn't yet learned the language. So, you know, the pictures really drew them in. And I know back in the day too, during the Civil War, a lot of these illustrations were people's really only visuals of what was going on in the battlefield. And a lot of these artists were considered war correspondents pretty much, and they'd go out and instead of writing about it or shooting photos like Matthew Brady, they'd make sketches of the battlefield. And they would send these back to the publisher, and based upon whatever specialty area had to be etched out, maybe some artists specialized in the human figure, other one could do trees and foliage, another one could do horses and other animals, another maybe do buildings. And they would break down these compositions into different parts, and each artist would etch out that particular portion according to their specialty. And then they'd be all the pieces would be assembled back together to make the printing plate for that particular image. And I don't know if these were necessarily drawn that same way, but it was really a fascinating process. And there was a Dubuque artist named Alexander Simplot who did this type of work, and I believe his image of troops leaving Dubuque on a ship down the Mississippi River was the first Civil War image published by Harper's Weekly.
That's cool. I don't remember, one of the magazines was the first one to publish Lincoln with his top hat.
Yeah.
And that's where our image came from.
And I think a lot of, like I said, a lot of these people, these were the only images they saw of, war, for example, but also a lot of the political leaders and men of power, they would, draw, whether it was a caricature or just a simple line drawing. That may be the only image they had seen of President Lincoln or whoever that was being drawn at the time.
So cool. I know, so we have three. We have Frank Leslie's illustrated newspaper. We have Puck, which was named after Midsummer's Night's Dream, Puck. And then we have Harper's Weekly up right now. And they were loaned to us from a Dubuque community member. So we have them for a little while, but it's so fun seeing them. And it's fun to open them up and see the images that are in here, but also the text. The text is so tiny.
Micro.
It's so tiny. Do you have any observations about the difference between how it's laid out and how the TH is laid out or modern newspapers?
Well, this is really visually based. I mean, it's almost like a comic book in a way. I mean, the front page was a large illustration, colorful at times. The image with the Puck magazine. It's amazing how small the type was. That's
so
smaller than our sports scoreboard page type.
Yeah.
Statistics.
But
there's people like the cartoonist Thomas Nast got his start doing images for, I believe it was Harper's Weekly, and he, of course, drew the first kind of commercially recognizable image of Saint Nick, and he also conceived and created the elephant and donkey icons for the political parties. And of course, he paved the way for other Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonists like Pat Oliphant, Jeff McNally, Bill Malden, and even Dubuquer Dick Loker. And then of course you have Frank Miller and Dave Darling from the Des Moines Register. So a lot of local talent won Pulitzer Prizes for their cartooning.
Do you have like a favorite old-timey cartoon that you can think of?
Well, I did like Dick Loker's style, and
Yeah.
I actually met Dick when I was the cartoonist for the Loris newspaper, The Lorien, back in 1985. Dick was there for some function or other. I think he possibly was giving a talk there, so I got to meet him and got him to sign a cartoon, so that was special.
That's cool. You were talking about color and the
Yes.
different layers of how things are printed.
Yeah, and I'm not sure quite how the printing process went back then, but I'm sure some of the principles were similar to what I've experienced. I started at the Telegraph Herald in 1987.
And
This
these-
particular
yeah.
device was invaluable. This, I'll get some close-ups of this later, but this here, it's a color wheel essentially, and it's got the 4 colors listed, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And this shows various percentages of each color. And so you could, spin these around and get any combination. I'll just take the black off here for now.
oh, you can take them off.
But if you want to get a nice orange color, you just figure out what percentage of red and what percentage of yellow, and get different shades of orange. Or if you want a green, you'd mix do a combination of blue and yellow. And depending on what percentage, you're going to get more of a minty green or a Kelly green. So it was kind of fun to work with too. But I use this all the time when I would do my cartoons.
Yeah,
And,
you brought
here's an
it.
example here. I was cutting color screens up until the mid-90s, so that's where the technology started to change, and we would start doing all the colors on the computer. And now you can just click a field and drop in whatever color you want. So here's a cartoon I did for one of our publications, Tri-State Biz Times. And so that was the actual original ink drawing. And I made a copy of that here. And the first thing I would do would be put down my registration marks here to make sure everything is going to align. And let's see here, I made a sketch. Yeah, I actually made a photocopy then and colored in the colors I was looking for. So then we had to recreate this on for the actual paper by cutting these color screens. And so here I would say 40% blue, 20% yellow. And would align those registration marks here. Now I have to cut all that by hand with an X-Acto knife. Let's see, then we'll add the yellow plate. And I always tried to keep the number of plates to a minimum, so I would overlap. I could do, if I did a blue plate and a yellow plate, and if they overlapped a certain area, that would get me the green. So on this here, the gentleman's got yellow hair and a blue suit, and the woman's got a green dress, so I could do that. If you figured that just right, you could save on the number of plates that were cut.
The little notes. Did you get to a point where you could color something and you could be like, okay, I can guess that this is probably this percentage?
Yeah, you could get pretty close here. So then here would be,
That's
so that's a blue and yellow plate. Here's the yellow plate then for his hair. And on the tie, to get a nice red, you would usually have to combine yellow and red because the magenta color was way too pinky. And then the pressman would make plates for these various colors, and then they'd get them all lined up here. And here's just an example of the finished product then. And you can see the importance of having good registration, because here, this was probably an early run, if you've seen this in the newspaper, where the colors are a little off. It's generally something that was printed early in the press run before they made their adjustments. And they can do that on the fly while these things are printing. They make adjustments to the press. We had a top-notch crew there. I mean, these things were tack sharp by the time they got the adjustments made. You can see where it's a little bit off, here and here. But that gives you an idea of what the finished product looked like. And then here's a different type of illustration I did. This wasn't inked out and the colors cut by hand. This was actually a colored pencil sketch that I did. And I brought this because it shows an example of when they do the separations. Here's a black plate. Here's what the blue plate would look like. And the red and the yellow. And so you can see then, if those get shifted a little bit, you can see what it looks like if that registration's a little bit off. So, and they always do a great job of getting those things aligned on the fly to make them look really nice in hand.
Oh, that's cool. I know, so we have the 3 newspapers up right now. And what's interesting is Puck are the only colored, the only newspapers with color, because they were the ones that were able to do it quickly.
Mm-hmm. And you think about how that was, 100 plus years ago, 150 years ago, how they could get such crisp images with the technology they had back then. And, just compare that to what we had to do with the gigantic press at the TH, and they were doing them. Sure, on a much smaller scale, but achieve quality results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're so beautiful. Do you have, so do you do a lot of the cartoons? Do you like doing the captions?
Yeah, it was fun. I really haven't done cartooning in quite a few years, but that was my specialty when I started at the TH. That was the reason I wanted to become an editorial artist, was to do cartooning. Of course, now my job duties have evolved quite a bit over 38 years, so I do a little bit of everything now, whether it's writing stories or taking photographs. I still do a lot of layout, occasional graphics, but not much cartooning anymore.
I was wondering if you wanted to open up one of these and kind of look at it. I like this one. This one's my favorite because it's the roller skating craze, and it's all about
you don't think of
roller skating as a new
19th
thing.
Century roller skating.
And so this bored little girl in the background, while everyone's falling around her, this very bored child, makes me really happy. But this is from 1885, and it's Frank Leslie's The Roller Skating Craze, the critical moment in the experience of an amateur. Also, I don't know how I could roller skate in a petticoat and a dress. But yeah, it's just a terrible waste. But these are kind of like what you were saying. These are the images that the people would see in the world.
Right.
This is how they would interact with the world and know visually what was going on.
Exactly. I mean, I'm sure not many folks in the Midwest had ever seen a palm tree, but here we've got one sketched out. Yeah, the amount of detail is just amazing. And to be able to reproduce all that detail.
It's probably something that can
like
cure
a
everything,
heist.
right? Oh yeah, you're right. He's got
Force fed.
That's great. Oh yeah, and this one was a crime.
Ringing the bells. Great chime of bells. Entrance to the World's Fair.
Yeah, we have a couple. It's interesting because they all our magazines have a section on the World's Fair. Not all of them, but we have one from each of the 3 big ones.
Right, and here's the example I said of some of the public figures that sketches made of them. This may have been the only time folks saw an image of their leaders and could get an idea of what they look like. Speaker of the Assembly. Of course, the advertisements back then were always fun to look at. What kind of snake oil they were selling at the time.
Moth, patches, freckles, and tan.
Names for diseases like consumption.
Right? The old.
Selling opium.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see I love this one too. So this is the back. And they're still on like the roller skating craze, where it's like a hint to pastors with slim congregations how to fill your churches. Just go roller skating at your church.
Congregants on the skates.
I love it.
Amazing.
And then so it's fascinating how fancy like the advertisements were. Like the amount of work to get this advertisement for soap is like astounding. Gold pens.
This is great, and I'm glad someone took the effort, the initiative
To keep it.
save and preserve these.
Because there's so, you don't really think about like the day-to-day things that just get lost in time. But yeah, some of these. This one's from 83. But I love that, like, all the names too. Echoes from abroad. Everything sounds so fancy. But yeah, just the simple knowing what's going on. Because it's interesting, because for a long time in history, it was just word of mouth and some guy on a horse. And so, once you have regular newspapers, possession of Norman stallions.
Like I said, if you didn't know how to read, there's plenty here to look at.
Yeah.
Tell the story.
And that's what, we were talking about that earlier, kind of before the video started, that it's, a lot of these you look at and you get the vibe, like you get kind of what's going on. Like
Right.
a lot of these, even now, you don't have to necessarily, like it helps to know the history behind it, but you understand these kind of concepts that
Right.
go on and on and on and on.
The essence of what they're trying to tell.
It's the fatal railroad accident of the Delaware and Hudson Railroad.
Yeah, 'cause photography was still in its
This was-
infancy back then, so they really relied on the artists to provide the visuals.
I remember when I was in school, like I studied printmaking, and I remember learning about these people that would go west and they would make these beautiful paintings and sketches and things, and then they'd have to send it back to the printmakers, and it was the printmaker's job to translate it into a reproducible image and keep the like the feeling and the detail and all of that intact while translating it into, say, like a line drawing.
Right.
But don't be a clam. I don't know what it is. Clams are not a proper model for human beings to copy after. That's my new favorite advertisement. Also, I very much like this elderly woman with her strange things. An old lady from the country makes a purchase of paper pins. Yeah, it's just fascinating to kind of look back and see what life was like. And just everyday life. Like, this was such a kind of, I mean, it's still the same today, you know?
Right, and they say newspapers are the first draft of history, so here you got some first-hand accounts of what was going on in 1883, 1885.
Well, thank you for talking to me
Yes, thank you
and
much.
giving us your opinion and your expertise. This was really cool. I was very excited about this. Do you have anything else you need?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.